stand right behind the chair to start with. Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm, under penalty of perjury, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
All right, have a seat. And just to make sure that we can hear you, we're going to have you take your mask off. I'm going to leave mine on, but and before you begin, and so we can test out the microphone, could you give us your full name, spelling each of your names?
Like my whole name?
Yep.
Alisha Mariee Oyler, Alisha Mariee Oyler.
And I think I'm going to be pulled just a little closer to the microphone. Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Slisher.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. And Ms. Oyler, the key I'm going to give you is that when you speak, you should be able to hear your own voice over the speakers, all right? So just lean close enough to the microphone to be able to do that, all right? So first, I'm going to ask you a few questions so we can get to know you a little better. How old are you?
23.
23. And are you originally from Minnesota?
No.
Where did you grow up?
No, I'm from Arizona. I'm sorry. I don't like this. Okay.
Yeah, I just need to speak.
Okay, can we do it? All right.
Thank you. And you can even pretend you're yelling at me if you want to, or make your voice hit the back of the room, all right?
Okay.
So you said that you grew up in Arizona, is that right?
Yep.
What part of Arizona?
Just Arizona.
The whole state?
Yep.
Okay. When did you make your way over to Minnesota?
I don't know. A while ago.
Were you still in high school?
Yeah.
Did you attend any schools when you moved to Minnesota?
Yeah.
Where did you go to school?
Red Wing.
In Red Wing, Minnesota? Where else did you go?
St. Paul.
St. Paul. Okay. What's the last grade you completed through high school?
11th.
Okay. Can you tell the jury the different cities or towns that you've lived in since coming to Minnesota?
I guess Minneapolis.
Okay. Minneapolis, and I assume Red Wing for
Yeah.
one?
St. Paul.
And St. Paul. Okay. Are you currently employed?
No.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about the types of jobs that you've held?
I used to work at Speedway.
And which speedway do you recall the location?
38th in Chicago.
Right. What did you do at Speedway at 38th in Chicago?
I'm a shift lead.
Shift lead? What does that mean?
Like not like a regular employee, but not a manager, like kind of in the middle.
Okay. So not a lot of us have had the experience of working as a shift lead at Speedway, so I'd like you to just tell the jury a little bit what's your day-to-day job like when you have that job?
I work at a cash register. I do paperwork. If a customer has an issue, I handle the issues.
Okay. You also work as a cashier.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to train other people or supervise other cashiers?
Sometimes.
How long did you have that job, Ms. Oyler?
About a year.
Did you start as a shift lead, or did you have a different position? You started as a shift lead? Can you tell the jury a little bit about the types of hours you would work there? It was a full-time job?
Yep, I work 40 hours a week.
Right.
Well, I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. When did you typically start your shift?
Between 2 or 3 to closing, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock was closing?
Yeah.
Was it a pretty busy store?
It has its moments.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see if you recognize the area. First, I'd like to show just the witness what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 1. Oh.
started the prosecution with Alisha Oyler. Ellie Honig, we still don't know quite yet what her role in all of this is.
Yeah, Brooke, it sounds like she's going to be one of the bystander eyewitnesses. So I think what we're going to hear from witnesses like this and others is sort of a little more dimension than we see from just those videos. What was it like to actually be inside the store, to come out to the sidewalk, and to see what was happening with your own eyes? I think that's what we're going to hear from this witness and others.
Okay, let's listen back in. Alisha Oyler.
And then I'm going to show you Exhibit 1. If you can take a look at the screen, it's just the one in front of you.
Oh.
All right. Do you recognize what's shown in Exhibit 1?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see the speedway where you used to work?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
All right. So, do you have something that looks like this in front of you? A little stylus? All right. What I'd like you to do is just take this and see if you can draw a circle around the speedway where you used to work. Thank you. All right. And the name of the store directly across the street, were you familiar with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
And what's the name of that store?
Cup Foods.
You ever go in that store? Were you a customer there?
Not really.
Not really? Just the place across the street where you worked?
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you see what's directly across the street if you cross 38th Street from Cup Foods?
Yeah.
Do you recognize that building?
Yeah, I didn't know that's what it was though.
What did you know it was?
I never really paid attention to it.
Okay. Well, do you recall whether or not you were working on May 25, 2020, Memorial Day?
Yeah.
And where were you working?
At Speedway.
At Speedway. All right. And do you recall when you began your shift?
About 3 o'clock.
And do you recall specifically what you were doing at the Speedway that day?
Ringing up customers.
And at the cash register?
Yeah.
Can you just, again, using your stylus, point or maybe put a little X around the area in front of the store where the cash register would be?
Like right here.
Okay. Are you able to see the outside across the street from the cash register?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes? And you said you began working at 3. I'd like to draw your attention to a little after 8 o'clock in the evening that day. Do you recall something that caught your attention outside of the Speedway?
Yeah.
You tell the jury what caught your attention.
The police, like in that area, it's always police.
When did you first notice, or where did you first notice the police?
I would say like on the corner, right, like diagonal, like across the street, like right here. Oops.
Okay. And so, for the record, that's across from Cup Foods, across 38th Street, in what is labeled on Exhibit 1 as Dragon Walk. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. Please tell the jury in your own words what it is you saw that caught your attention.
Just the police, try not to cuss, just them messing with someone.
Okay. And when you say messing with someone, and thank you for not cussing, but when you say messing with someone, could you please describe what you mean by that?
Like, I don't really know how to explain it, just like disturbing somebody before we found out who it was.
Okay. Now, did you eventually find out who the police were disturbing in your words?
Yeah.
Who's that?
George Floyd.
Had you ever met this person before?
No.
To your knowledge, you've never been a customer in the Speedway?
No.
Okay. Can you please describe for the jury what you saw after you first noticed the police having this interaction with the person you now know to be Mr. Floyd?
Can you say that again?
So can you just describe, after you first noticed the police having this interaction with Mr. Floyd, what did you see happen?
In my handcuffs.
You saw, where was Mr. Floyd when you saw him in handcuffs?
Over here across the street.
Okay, in the area where you first indicated by the Dragon
I
Walk?
believe so.
And then what did you see happen after Mr. Floyd was in handcuffs?
I don't remember.
What's the next thing you do
Oh,
remember? Are you a little nervous today?
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. Just take your time. And we have plenty of time to get through this, okay? And so, just backing up, you'd indicated that Mr. Floyd was in handcuffs, and just think to yourself what you next remember seeing after you noticed he was in handcuffs.
I think they ended up putting him in the police car thing.
In which police car? Where was the police car that you saw?
The one right across from Cut Foods.
Okay. Now, before you saw that, did you see the police take Mr. Floyd across the street?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes? All right. So after you saw him in handcuffs, you saw him being taken across the street and then placed in the car right outside of Cut Foods. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And you owned a cell phone, correct?
Yeah.
You owned a cell phone at the time. Yes?
Yes.
And did you do anything with your cell phone as you began to notice this incident involving Mr. Floyd and the police?
Well, as you guys seen that on the security thing that I had my phone.
Right, you had your phone. Did you do anything with your phone?
Like recording it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'd like you to do first, before we get to the point where you start recording, just explain to the jury what you saw after you noticed the police officers putting Mr. Floyd in the car.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I can't think right now.
Well, you indicated that you began recording with your cell phone, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And during the time that you've been speaking to the police about this, you've provided your cell phone recordings to law enforcement, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
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 All right. And there were a total of 7 cell phone recordings that you personally took, is that correct?
Yes.
You've reviewed each of those cell phone recordings, correct?
Yeah.
And those cell phone recordings, do they fairly and accurately depict what you saw on the street that day?
Yeah.
And 2 of those cell phone recordings were actually made from inside the store, correct?
Yes.
And then the rest were outside of the store.
Yeah.
Now, those cell phone recordings, the individual clips, have been marked and disclosed to counsel as exhibits 2 through 8. You wouldn't know that, but they have. And at this time, I'm going to offer exhibits 2 through 8. Yeah.
Any objection?
No, you're good.
2 through 8 are received.
And then, Ms. Oyler, you also had an opportunity to review a surveillance video. Is that right?
Yes.
And the surveillance video, for the record, is Exhibit 11. Having reviewed that video, did that video, fairly and accurately capture things that you observed when you were working at Speedway on the 25th?
Yes.
Okay. And then you were able to review that surveillance video in a format in which all of your cell phone videos, or I guess I should say 6 of the 7 cell phone videos, had been spliced into or put next to the surveillance video, correct?
Yes.
And that kind of gives a perspective of when those individual videos were shot. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the combination of the 6 videos that we've just received and Exhibit 11, which has been offered and received, would that composition better help you and assist you in explaining your testimony to the jury?
Yes.
All right. And that, for the record, is Exhibit 9. I offer Exhibit 9.
Any objection? 9 is received.
And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and publish Exhibit 9. I'm just going to take Exhibit 1 down. And when I say publish, I mean I'm going to play it, and at times I'm going to stop and pause and have you explain some things. All right?
Okay. Okay.
All right. If we could begin publishing Exhibit 9, please. And I believe we're paused at 7 seconds. At this point, you can see, and I'm going to place a circle around the officers. You see them there?
Yes.
And are those the people that you saw interacting with the person you now know to be Mr. Floyd?
Yep.
And your first interaction that you noticed was actually across the street by the Dragon Walk. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, as Mr. Floyd's being taken over the car, I think that we will soon hear your first recording. So if we can resume playing.
Always some shit going on over here.
After you made that short recording, and that was you, I suppose, narrating.
Yes.
Okay. After you were narrating that portion, you continued to watch.
Yes.
Now, at this time, Ms. Oyler, did you notice any bystanders, anybody in the street?
No.
Approaching 8:16 and 30 seconds. Ms. Oyler, were you continuing to watch the events as you were working the cash register at Speedway at this time?
I believe so, yes.
We've paused at about 8:17, and at some point, did you notice some other police officers arrive on the scene?
I think so.
Well, let's resume play here. Okay, and let's pause. Now, at this time, I'm showing you two other individuals who are joining the first two officers that you saw. You notice those?
Yeah.
And what did you see those two officers do after they arrived?
I don't remember.
Let's continue. From your vantage point inside the Speedway, were you able to hear anything outside?
No.
All right, let's pause here for a moment, and we're at 8:18 and 10 seconds. As best you can, describe for the jury what you recall seeing the officers do with Mr. Floyd prior to getting to this point.
Before this point?
Before this point, for example, did you see Mr. Floyd get into a vehicle?
Like off of what we just watched?
What do you recall seeing with Mr. Floyd and the squad car just before we get to this point?
Like when they drag him out?
Okay. All right, let's resume. Now we're paused at about almost 8:19. I asked you previously about bystanders and noticing bystanders. At some point, as you made these observations, did you see a crowd of bystanders gather?
Not till like after.
After what?
Like after they did yeah.
Okay. So at this point, you're not seeing a crowd either in the immediate area or across the street at the Speedway?
I'm trying to remember. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, let's resume play. No, you can keep going. pause here. And this is at 8:20 and 20 seconds. Can I ask you some questions about some people, again, some bystanders in the area? Do you know who this person in the lower left corner wearing sandals and shorts and a black shirt is?
No.
Don't recognize him, never seen him before?
No.
Do you know the person in the dark shirt, hooded sweatshirt, and the blue pants?
No.
You never met her before either?
No.
Okay. Or how about the child behind her in the green shirt?
No.
Not familiar with her either?
No.
Okay. If you'd please resume. I'm going to pause for a moment here. Do you recognize that person, that officer? Do you recall seeing an officer interacting with a group of bystanders who would later gather?
I think so.
Can you physically describe that person as best you can remember?
I don't really know. It's been so long.
Do you recall previously talking about a bald police officer?
I think in one of my videos I was talking to a person.
Okay. A bald officer. Do you recall as you sit here today what the bald officer did?
I think he was like yelling at people. Like before or after this.
Do you also recall describing a tall officer?
Yeah.
What did the tall officer do?
I think he was like, I don't remember. There's so much.
Let's resume play.
There's always some shit going on.
Pause for a moment. Now, what we heard there that was imposed at the same time as the surveillance video was your second recording. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
And again,
Yes.
that was your voice when you said there are always some...
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Had you continued to watch these events out the window that entire time?
Did I watch it outside?
From inside?
I think I went outside to smoke a cigarette.
All right, I'm going to ask the play to resume and ask you to pay particular attention to your video on the right side, okay? Freeze. Yeah, go a little bit further. Stop. All right. Now, showing you what appears to be a reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Recognize that?
Yeah.
Who's that?
That's me.
Okay. So that's you recording the events reflected in the window, correct?
Yep.
So based on that, would you agree that you were inside the Speedway at the time this particular recording was made?
Yes.
Resume, please. Pause. Now, can you please explain to the jury, why did you continue to record what you were seeing here?
Because I always see the police, they're always messing with people, and it's wrong and it's not right.
I'm going to then direct your attention to the right side of the screen as well. You see that you briefly turned your camera away from the officers in the squad car towards the area that's right by the Dragon Walk. Is that right? And can you tell the jury what you see here?
I see people standing there, but that's not why I shifted the camera.
Can you explain why you shifted the camera?
Because that's where it started from.
Okay, so when you say that's where it started from, I think your description initially was that there were some officers who were, to use your words, messing with Mr. Floyd.
Yep.
Okay, and this is the area in which they were messing with Mr. Floyd?
Yep, when it started.
I'd like to resume play again, please. Let's pause for a moment, and you can see that that would have been your second recording has stopped. And at this point, we're continuing to watch the surveillance video. Please resume. We could freeze here. Let it go just a little further. Stop. All right. So again, I've already asked you about some of the people in the crowd, and you said you didn't know them. I want to add some of the folks. There's a person in a white T-shirt. Do you recognize that person?
I don't know that person.
Never seen that young woman before?
Not before like this.
And then I think walking by, I don't know if you noticed, there was a couple with a child. Had you ever seen them before?
No.
And then there's a gentleman here in a dark hooded sweatshirt. Had you ever seen that person before?
No.
Please resume.
All right, so we're going to pull out of this just for a couple of minutes and have a chat with Ellie Honig and former Police Commissioner Charles Ramsey. And so we've been listening to this second witness. This is Alisha Oyler. She's important because she obviously worked at the Safeway, which was just adjacent to where all of this happened. And obviously, Ellie, she's key because of her vantage and her videos. At the same time, she is clearly really nervous. Your assessment of just how she's doing and the information she's providing.
Yeah, Brooke, this is obviously a very nervous witness. This happens. It's okay. Look, it's a scary experience for any person to get up and testify in any criminal trial, never mind one like this that the whole nation is watching. The prosecutor's doing a good job. The rule of thumb when you have a nervous witness like this is slow it down one bite at a time, and that's what he's doing.